Hey, dear listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything I say in reaction to these shows is completely speculative based on very little information that the show and the cast members are choosing to show us. Keep that in mind. Let's watch.
Feels like we're about to have some serious talk.
So you guys have been here for a few months, and we just want to kind of talk about what the plans were for you guys and what you were thinking in terms of moving out.
So you're kicking us out, is what you're saying?
Okay, this is interesting. It happens later in the episode. I think I'll actually include this in the Emily and Kobe episode because I talked so long on the tangent about this very thing. So I think they're about to actually have that conversation that I was referring to.
So we talked about, before Miona came, that you could stay with us for a few months. We all had talked about the end of the year after you guys got married.
Okay, so we're hearing that they had a conversation before that, okay, you're going to move back in, but then you will move out by the end of the year. So they had that conversation, and it sounds like they're revisiting that agreement that they had.
No, you said to the end of the year, so that's another whole full month.
So that's what we're talking about. We want to firm up plans.
Okay, so there's some emotional dynamics happening here. One, before they even sat down, Jibri was saying that he felt like he was in trouble, like he was a child. And what I would say is, if you approach it like a child, it'll be like a child. You'll feel like a child. But if you approach it like an adult, like if he would sit down and as soon as they broached this topic, if he said, oh yeah, totally, I get it. We agreed I would move out. Thank you so much for taking me in. I know I'm a grown man and I'm in your way. And, you know, we definitely want to move out. And we don't want to bother you anymore, for sure. I mean, you haven't said that, but thanks, you know. And so definitely, I'm still on that track. In fact, I'm already looking at places. You know, that's what an adult would say. A child would get defensive and say something like, "Well, I don't know. I already have a little bit of time." And she's like, "Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why we're talking about it right now." So that's, you know, it's interesting that I think that. Each of them, the mom and Jibri, will suck each other in or try to the over-functioning codependent and the under-functioning, person of problem, childish person. And there are times, right, that where she is actually trying to create that dynamic, seemingly from the edit. But right now, I think he's trying to suck her in by becoming more of an under-functioner, more of a child. But she's resisting that and actually saying, okay, yeah, because she could say something like, why are you being defensive right now? And come down on him like he's a child. But instead, she's just, you know, okay, yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about, end of the month. And I think the parents also might have come into this conversation thinking, okay, we're not going to get entangled in some kind of fight. We're just going to lay it out and they're going to move out because that's the agreement. It makes sense. They're adults and it's just a matter of fact. And so let's see how this goes.
So you're getting married soon, somewhere. Where's that?
I don't know yet.
You're getting married sometime soon. So when is that?
We don't know yet.
So this is probably going to suck the dad in to be an overfunctioner. I'm not sure because, you know, peer to peer, adult to adult, you would say, oh, okay, well, you know, I'm sure you'll figure it out anyway. So, but if he gets sucked into overfunctioning, he will start to get entangled in that vacuum that they just both created. Miona is saying nothing, probably because she's just like, well, these aren't my parents. But Jibri is like, I don't know where we're getting married. I don't know when. Instead of what an adult should say is, yeah, this looks bad, but we don't really have a venue. We don't even really know when, but we're working on it. And now, I don't know if I showed this clip on YouTube. I'm sure you saw it last week where, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, when the parents were saying that they're not going to go to the wedding because they don't support it. And they think that it's a bad idea. And I remember wondering, why do you think it's a bad idea? Like what's terrible about their relationship that makes it so that you you're wanting to protest it that strongly, right? Like, what's the complaint there? Is something else going on behind the scenes? I don't know. I mean, their stated complaint was that he was giving up everything and spending all of his time with her. And I'm like, well, she just landed on a plane like 6 weeks ago or something, and they haven't seen each other in a long time. So yeah, they're spending a lot of time together. And they're planning a wedding. That's a good sign. That means that they enjoy each other's company. And I would be more concerned with the opposite. Not that it would be a problem, but so that's your complaint, is that he's in love with his fiancée and excited about getting married. So, I don't know what any of this sort of means, but if I were to take a guess or an hypothesis I would follow, is that because of the underfunctioning, overfunctioning codependent dynamic that they've had, codependency meaning the overfunctioner is the codependent, that he has made a lot of bad choices in his life, and the parents have very good reasons to be overly reactive when he makes an impulsive decision. Now, in review over this season, we've seen times when they are being codependent over him, and he will actually approach them as an adult, as a differentiated, mature individual, and say, he said something along the lines, and I think I even role played this before he said it. I was like, well, he could say this, and then he said something along the lines of, look, I get that I'm taking a risk, and I get that something could be wrong, but I'm willing to take that risk because I love her, and I think this is going to work out, and you're just going to have to trust me, and you're just going to have to let me make my own choices and make my own mistakes, which I remember thinking, okay, good, because it's exactly what I think he should be saying and what she needs to hear, what the parents need to hear. And when you do that, when you act like an adult and you say, I know you're right, the risk is there, your concerns are rational, and I see those, and I do worry about that, but I've taken it into account in my overall decision-making process, and I think getting married is the right thing to do. Now, there's also a possibility that it's not the right thing to do, and the parents know a lot more information about how thin their connection is, but I think they've spent a fair amount of time in person together. But anyway, so let's see if the dad, so Jibri just did a massive, childish, under-functioning thing. I don't know, right? It's fine that you don't know, but the way he says it, let's rewind it and see again how the dad responds.
So you're getting married soon, somewhere. Where's that?
I don't know yet.
You're getting married sometime soon. So when is that?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay. So that's where we want to kind of figure out that.
That's why we need just a little bit more time just to figure it out.
Yeah, not inspiring to the parents in terms of that Jibri is a grown man, because I think what he's essentially saying is, yeah, we don't know when we're getting married yet. God, I'm exaggerating for effect, and we need more time. You can't kick us out yet. And it's like, oh, you're a grown adult, like you knew the deal. You should have been preparing. You could have. Does he not have a job? Does he just think he's going to make money and maybe he does make a lot of money in the music business. Somehow I doubt it.
My parents are on some bull. They're just not trying to help out. They're not supportive. I just not what I expected.
I mean, on one hand, yeah, I think given what we've seen on the show, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're not emotionally supportive. But the fact that they're holding you to the agreement that you made when you moved in, that's not lack of support. That's just saying, look, we provided you with a favor by putting the two of you up in our house, two grown adults who, and for him, he can absolutely work and pay for his own place, unless I don't know something, but I'm sure the parents would account for that if that were the case. So, we did this favor for you, now it's time to move out. So, right? Is that what's happening? And then defensiveness from him.
Over and over that we want to be at your wedding, and we needed to know when so that we could make plans.
Yeah, but we didn't know when this K1 fiancé visa was gonna come through. We got the interview date a week before, in the end of the summer, so we didn't have time to even plan anything. We didn't have 10 months to plan anything.
Okay, so
So the mom is saying, we told you over and over and over again we wanted to be there, but we needed to know when. So I don't know, maybe the parents have an extremely rigid work schedule that makes it so that they can't take time off. I know the mom is a therapist, a counselor of some sort, and it is true that it's hard to suddenly take time off. You know, if you're I don't know, some other job, like you work at McDonald's or something, and there's a whole team of workers, and you say, I don't know, that's a bad example because I know people in the restaurant industry, it's really hard to take time off because it just ruins other people's lives. I don't know, some other job, like an office job of some kind, where you're working with other people and you can suddenly take a week off. Being a therapist is different, right? Because your clients depend on you, and it's you need to make plans. You need to prepare some clients for that. I will say that in general, therapists, even myself, I'm probably the worst at this in comparison to other people I know, that therapists, we tend to not take much time off, or we'll over prepare because we feel too guilty and too responsible. I mean, we should be allowed to take time off, right? Especially if your clients aren't really that kind of client where they're going to have some horrible thing happen to them if you take time off. And it's been a long time since I've had a client that would be at risk if I took a week off suddenly, even if I just canceled an appointment. I'm not saying you should be flippant about that, and I'm actually very adamant about therapists not being flippant, because some therapists are. They're just like, oh, I think I'll take a mental health day. I'll just cancel all my appointments today. I'm just like, what? Like, no, that's really hurtful, and it could be really hurtful to clients. So within reason, if it's an emergency, then absolutely. And that's the other thing that I'll tell. Most therapists are in the other direction, where they really need to take a day off suddenly, like say their mom dies that morning suddenly, and it would be absolutely rational to cancel all their clients that day, but they won't because they feel too responsible, which is unfair to the therapist. You know, there's within reason. Anyway, now some people want to work because they just don't want to think about the trauma of the grief. But anyway, so the mom is saying that they needed time, and it's like, okay, especially if it's going to be a destination wedding, they need time to be able to make those plans. All right. But that's not what they were saying, right? They were saying is, even if you give us time, we're not going to go because we don't support this marriage. So they seem to be not saying that now.
You had 3 months to plan something.
And we're still in those 3 months.
Oh, the other thing is that if you don't know about these kinds of things, like I didn't, I would thought, okay, that makes sense. 90-day fiancé makes sense. You have 90 days to figure out if you want to get married. All the K1 people, the people like people who watch and comment below, will explain to me, no, that's not how this works. When you sign for the K1 visa, you are saying we are getting married. There's no ambiguity there. We want to get married. It's happening. We've already made that decision. We even have a date, but we need 90 days to iron out the final details. In fact, in all likelihood, we'll get married within the first week of me arriving because I want to get married right away. We don't even need 90 days because why would we need 90 days? We've been planning online, that kind of thing. So it's not, according to the law, I don't know if this is true, but people would tell me it's actually kind of illegal or fraudulent for individuals to already be in the 90-day time period and saying things like, we don't know if we're going to get married or not. That's actually counter to what they testified to or committed to when they were actually asking for a K1 visa to begin with. And the visa was applied for not at the beginning of the 90 days. It would have been applied for maybe months, if not years, prior to the 90 days even happening. So you've had ample time to consider if you want to get married, and two, when and where, because he could absolutely have been locking down the dates and the time, and so could she. She could actually call or email venues, that kind of thing. So that's the other point here.
So we didn't have time to even plan anything. We didn't have 10 months to plan anything.
Okay, so
You had 3 months to plan something.
And we're still in those 3 months, so it's not.
So I don't want to argue about that
Damn.
because, Jibri,
I know, but that's if you think about it.
So he's really under-functioning in this one. He's really, if you didn't know better, you would think he was a teenager, like 16 or something. Like, oh, God, he's literally whining. And now it's starting to take a toll. You hear me talk about differentiation. It's a concept developed by Murray Bowen 70 years ago-ish, and it's still used today. It's a very useful term. listen to all my episodes on Boehnian therapy and differentiation. It's really way more complicated than I even talk about it here. But in general, one of the aspects of differentiation is the ability to differentiate yourself and your feelings from other people's selves and feelings. And when they are engaged, the mom and Jibri in particular, I think they have a tendency to fuse, a tendency to enmesh and lose track of what they set out to do. So who knows, but let's say the mom had headed into this conversation saying, I'm not going to get entangled. I'm not going to talk down to him. We get into that sometimes. No matter what happens, I'm just going to hold the line, and I'm not going to be mean, but I'm just going to say, let's talk about when you're moving out. And because that's the main thing, because they're talking about the wedding, but I think they're mainly talking about that of just like, well, we don't want to kick you out in the middle of your wedding. So if we knew when your wedding was, then we would know to give you maybe a little extra time after that. I think that's the main reason why they're even talking about that. So the main focus of this is talk about when are you moving out, because we worry that if we don't have this conversation now, a month prior, it'll feel very, you'll act like this the day before you agreed to move out, and you will not move out. So let's start the ball rolling. But she's being very calm and, not being triggered into overfunctioning. And I'm imagining all this is happening. I don't know if this is true. So she's able to differentiate. So differentiation is an interpersonal and an interpersonal thing. And so she's able to get triggered by him and go, no, don't do that. That's not helpful. My goal is to stay calm and hold the line and not get entangled in some sort of distraction here. Let's just, let's relax. There's no reason to fight. But she can only do that for so long. And Murray Bowen himself even said this, that the most differentiated, mature, healthy person in the world can only remain differentiated for a short amount of time, especially under circumstances like this, maybe like 30 minutes. The healthiest person on the planet will eventually lose the ability to differentiate self and other and feelings and your intellect. And so it's possible, I'm hearing a little tone in her voice that she's starting to do this. Jibri, you hear that voice? That's the way you talk to a kid. That's not someone you, now maybe people watching be like, well, he deserves that. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you're trying to avoid getting into that pattern where nothing ever goes anywhere, and it promotes this idea that he's an idiot and incompetent and thus will never move out and never make any decision for himself and will only make decisions. There's a possibility that his decision making is purely based on, I just want to do my own thing. I just want to do what my parents don't want me to do, or something like that. Or at least that's a factor, right? And you don't want people making decisions like that. You want them actually evaluating the factors instead of just reacting to what you want or don't want, right? So I think he actually legit loves her, and I think it's not a bad decision, at least from our standpoint, but I think it might be a factor. Anyway, so let's see how she manages.
But it's kind of like slap in the face a little bit.
Nope, it's not a slap in the face. You had plenty of time before Miona came to look for places to get married because you knew this was going to happen eventually.
Yeah. So she's still kind of in that tone. If I were there, and I'd probably lose it too, but if I were there and differentiated, I would say something like, well, from my standpoint, you had plenty of time, and I was willing to help you, but I wasn't willing to make up for your decisions if you made a bad decision, which is up to you. I just don't want to have it. Now, well, if I was really differentiated, I would really avoid the whole wedding thing altogether. And I just like, well, you don't know when your wedding is and you don't know where it is. That's up to you. I'm sure you'll figure it out one way or the other, but you are moving out at the end of the year. So I just thought we would talk about that. I'd probably just stick to that, because it's now that they're getting into this zone, there's too much entanglement there.
We are following up with the plans for you two to be on your own, starting a married life in your own place at the end of the 90 days.
Right. Okay. So she brought it back, and she's calm and nice and everything. So and she keeps emphasizing the plan, meaning we agreed on this. So and she's not wording it that way because that'd be condescending. So I'm just bringing it back to the plan. And just imagine if Jibri didn't have this issue and the relationship didn't have this issue. He would just say, totally, yeah. But maybe he could, if he was like, he could say something like, totally, makes total sense, absolutely, that was the plan. And that, I absolutely thought that was going to happen. But some things have happened that have kind of messed things up for me. I know this is really awful of me to ask for this favor, but could we extend it another few months? Because I need that time. And if you don't want to, totally fine. Yeah, I'll make it work. But it'll be the last favor I ask. He could ask for that, right? But the manner at which he's reacting is like, golly. I'm not mocking him. I'm doing it for effect. The regression, the childishness of it, which I don't think he's inherently childish. I think he just falls into that because of the entrenched dynamic between him and his mom. All right, well, I want to thank everyone for liking this video or any of my videos or subscribing or hitting the bell. It gives me self-esteem when you do that. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.